Who was Marvin Miller? Marvin Miller was a leader, a labor union activist, determined to make changes, admired by players and fans, and a fighter for rights. Marvin Miller was born on April 14, 1917, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents are Alexander Miller and Gertrude Wald Miller. His father was a salesman in the garment district, and his mother an elementary school teacher. He learned about unions and how people should be treated in a workforce, watching his mother in the United Federation of Teachers. He grew up walking in picket lines and enjoyed doing so. His dad also was a Giants fan, and he grew up watching baseball. As his education progressed, he received his degree in economics and graduated from New York University. In the same year of his graduation, he married Teresa Morgenstern, and later on had 2 children. He then started his career of multiple jobs before becoming the Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director. Before his opportunity of becoming the Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director, he had other leadership roles at other jobs as well. His first job was for the New York City Welfare Department. Soon after that, he became an economist at the War Production Board. After World War II, he worked for the United States Department of Labor's Conciliation Service, and as a research economist for the United Steelworkers of America. Then he became the Major League Baseball Players Association Executive Director. After receiving the job, he fought for players and was respected by many. He received letters from current players thanking him for the actions he took and how he approached them. Miller changed the way the game is run, those who play it, and all those who participate in it. In one of Miller's speeches, he talks about the relationship between players and owners and how they both realize that the union can be very strong and demanding. It discusses the question, why did it take so long for the players to form an organized union? Miller was a factor for this, but a lot of the credit had to go to the players as well. Miller, with his labor management skills, was the perfect push the players needed to get this union started. Miller realized that players argue for 2 things, more money and more rights.
When the arbitrator finally agreed with the union that an owner could only control a player for 1 year, the time had come to negotiate a whole new system, and the owners panicked. They could not picture living under a system in which every player would be a free agent every year.
In 1968, Miller helped players negotiate the first ever collective bargaining agreement in professional sports. This agreement raised the minimum salary in baseball from $6,000 to $10,000.
I was in my 6th year of play in the big leagues, making $16,000, and my fiance was flying for American Airlines making $19,000. And then the Messerschmitt-McNally decision came down. Free agency was implemented in '76, and I went from making $16,000 in 1976 to making $60,000 for a year on a 2-year contract.
In 1970, Miller helped players negotiate the right to arbitration to resolve complaint.
And even though the arbitrator's decision gave the players the right to be free agents every year, we felt that it was in the interest of the game and the players that supply of free agents not be so great every year, and that there be an eligibility requirement.
Miller considered this one of the most significant achievements of the union's early years. Miller now believed there was time for the right of free agency. After strikes and lots of hard work, the players won that right in December of 1975. Miller earned the players' trust, and they enjoyed working by his side. Due to free agency, pay to a player now was determined on execution and the position they played. Contracts had different salary types, and players were allowed a say in the process, rather than just being told what was happening to them next. However, even with free agency, there always will be money issues in professional sports that not even Marvin Miller himself can fix. One man who was vital in helping Miller's actions was Curt Flood. Flood respected Miller in numerous ways for what he was trying to accomplish. Flood is best remembered for his courage in challenging the reserve clause, a move as crucial to the economic rights of players as Jackie Robinson was to the breaking the color barrier. The reserve clause was a clause in player contracts that bound a player to a single team for a long period, even if the individual contracts he signed nominally covered only 1 season. During a conversation between Flood and Miller, Miller said to Kurt, "Unless some miracle takes place and the Supreme Court reverses itself, you're not going to win." And Kurt, to his everlasting credit, responded saying, "But would it benefit all the other players and future players?" Miller responded, "Yes." Kurt said, "Then that's good enough for me." This conversation was talking about Flood not wanting to be traded to Philadelphia and didn't want to be treated like a commodity. Miller fought hard for rights of players, managers, and coaches, and helped change the game of baseball along with other professional sports. He worked for free agency and felt that players should have a say in their career standpoint. Miller is responsible and thanked every day for the tremendous actions he took for the world of sports. Miller left behind an extraordinary legacy. He transformed the Players' Union into one of the strongest unions in the United States and won many of his cases he fought. Miller taught MLB players human capital, and he transformed the business within the game and gave players more rights. He allowed the start of players to have a salary demand and speak what was on their mind. Miller made salaries increase, gave the players an opportunity to rise, and made baseball a truly different game. And all due to Miller's actions, the business within baseball changed greatly.
We started with very little. I won't say nothing, but very little. You weren't going to have a career where you could retire and be happy, but we had very little, so we stuck together, and it worked on our behalf. You know, with multi-year contracts that they didn't used to give out, and guarantees which they didn't used to give. So I was now beginning to see the fruits of our labor, the benefits of sticking together and going with the Players Association.
On November 27, 2012, Miller passed away in Manhattan, New York at the age of 95. The world lost a truly great man. However, even with all the positive factors that Miller brought to the table, he wasn't appreciated by everyone. Miller to this day still isn't in the Hall of Fame, and many people question it. Considering he was working with and for the players, managers weren't a huge fan of his. Walter O'Malley, the Brooklyn Dodgers owner, relocated his team to Los Angeles. And Barney Dreyfuss, a long ago Pittsburgh Pirates owner, were two with whom he did not get along with. His nemesis, on the other hand, was baseball commissioner of the time, Bowie Kuhn, who Miller frequently outworked. Miller said Bowie Kuhn was a negative factor for baseball. Without any question, if he hadn't existed, we would have had to invent him.
Miller, through all his tough times, enemies faced, and greatest achievements, never gave up on the players, and the players never gave up on him. Throughout his 16-year-long career, Miller always did what was right and said what was on his mind. To this day, contracts in sports are a very big deal, and agreeing on common terms can be very difficult. But at least both sides are allowed a say in the process. Imagine not having a say and just doing what you were told. If one day, all of a sudden you are forced to pack your bags and play for another team. Due to Miller's actions, no player will ever have to worry about that again.